Does rest affect our ability to have an impact? As leaders, the question we're bringing today is, does resting affect our ability to have an impact? Because if you're following us here on the Value Added podcast, you are going to be told, instructed, encouraged to unplug from time to time.
And dope slapped if you don't.
Right, exactly. Unplug from time to time because the body, the mind, the heart, I mean, it just needs rest and it needs time to recover.
You know, I know some leaders who have this kind of badge of honor that they've accrued all the possible vacation time they can and sitting at their max, and they're just going from one to another.
It's a badge of honor.
Right? It's a badge of honor. And they feel like, you know, I know some I've talked to, they feel like, you know, if I'm not here, then things aren't moving forward.
Right.
Right. In the projects I'm responsible for aren't going the way, or can't go as far if I'm not here to oversee them. But I would argue the opposite is true.
I mean, I even have, you know, a couple of really close friends who, you know, with their particular role, there is a lot of truth to that. If they do take a break, it's like, okay, this is going to kind of come to a screeching halt, or, you know, because of their positions, their organizations, and where they're at, not quite being at a place where somebody else can just slip in easily. Yeah. You know, they tend to go the extra mile, you know, probably too often, right? And so, into that, I would say this, and I mean this with all due respect for the few individuals I have in my mind. What's really worth it at the end of the day? What's really worth it at the end of the day is your, you know, emotional health, right? Your mental health, your ability, your physical health, your ability to cope, right? You need rest. It doesn't matter what position you're in or what responsibility you hold. If you could be a janitor, you could be the president. It does not matter. You need, your body physically needs it. Your mind needs it. You need to rest. You need to recover. At the end of the day, you got to put that, I think, in its place.
And I would argue that we are more productive. We are more effective. We are more efficient after having a season of rest. That makes up for the time that we were away from the organization. It's just hands down, you know, my primary responsibility at the moment is what I call being the substitute teacher for managers. Mm-hmm. The managers will go out of the office for whatever reason, long vacation, medical leave, absence, whatever it is. My department will come in and take over the running of their team for them while they're out. And I see this again and again and again. Whatever the reason they're out, they come back with a little more pep in their step, their leadership step, I guess we talked about before.
For sure.
And, you know, another fire and energy and clarity they didn't have before they went out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just consistently see this.
Yeah. You know, Socrates has this great quote where he says, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And I think that it fits so nicely in here because, again, there's a lot of leaders who are wired to just go, and get it done, and get up and do it again, and get up and do it again. And rest is kind of, by default, their personalities is kind of the last thing that they think of.
Yes.
Right. And so I like how Socrates kind of just, and I don't know exactly the context of this, but when I read the quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living," it's like, hey, slow down a second.
Yeah.
Enough time to find some solitude, to find that rest, to examine your own life, maybe your heart, mind, where you're going, what the end game is, you know, count the cost, all those different things.
I know there's personality types out there who like to have the next task, the objective, the next thing. My sister is a little bit that way. She just likes having something else to do to make life seem worth living and alive and moving forward and achieving. But I would also argue even those people need the opportunity to rest, to bring that clarity of vision and direction and rejuvenation. We are human beings. We have limitations, and we need to recognize them and then take care of ourselves.
Yeah. So we're kind of walking through, we're asking this question, you know, does rest affect, you know, our ability to have an impact? And I think absolutely, yes, it does. Yeah. And so we're looking at kind of these first three ways to rest and kind of maybe what rest does, for us. We're kind of compiling it together in this particular episode. And kind of the first one is just on the idea of unplugging. We just walk through the mind, the heart, the body. They need the rest. They need the recovery. Unexamined life's not worth living. So unplugging. And when I say unplug, I mean unplug.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one because at the end of the day, it's like, leaders, if I haven't checked my email, it's like, you need to unplug.
Yeah.
I know I get, a number of weeks for vacation each year. And I have one of those weeks where I'm super good at unplugging. And I am just like, nope. And I'll check my emails maybe twice in that whole week if you're lucky. I really can unplug really well on that vacation. It's kind of a repeat. It's a big family thing. Lots of distractions. I don't even care where my phone is 99% of that vacation. And that's probably the best week of the year. And I just come back so refreshed and rejuvenated, but also sometimes I just want to stay on that vacation because it's a happy place now. And so the idea of unplugging is really unplug.
And it's not just unplug from social media. It's not just unplug for technology. It includes those things, but it's also more so in unplugging from work and responsibilities at work.
Yep.
We want to make sure that
Absolutely.
disconnect is a disconnect. I filled in for managers who just could not check their email or chime in or respond to an email that while they were gone is my responsibility to respond to and give their 2 cents on it. I wonder how refreshed they come back, or if they do it at all.
Yeah.
And there's just another side note. I think there is super huge value to unplugging technology and social media as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Recently in the news, there was a story about schools in the Midwest who are confiscating phones from students as they enter the school, put them in little envelopes with their name on them, and they get them back when they leave for the day. And they've been doing this for a while, and they've seen a drop in bullying. They've seen an increase in grades.
Wow.
They've seen an improvement in behavior and values. So just all around, there's strong evidence that unplug is hugely beneficial.
Yeah, and we're gonna which kind of leads us to the next point Bill's going to talk about, which is when you're able to unplug, you're able to kind of realize some things when you're unplugging, and one of them is this idea of building margin.
Yeah, it's about planning for times and seasons to unplug. When I had a really stressful role and responsibility for a season, I actually planned one mental health day a month to vacation day. I'm just as my mental long weekend, extra time away from work.
So don't wait till the crisis hits.
Don't wait till the
plan
crisis.
For it.
It's like health management, right?
Yeah.
I don't wait until there's something wrong with me before I take care of my health. I'm making sure I'm exercising, I'm eating the right things, I do the right things the right way at the right time. In the same way, we want to build margin into our schedules that we have a day off here and there, a week off, and then on occasion, an extra long vacation just to bring rejuvenation.
I would add too, the older you get, the harder it is to create habits. So if you're a young leader right now, start doing this, because the older you get, and I don't mean to pick on the older leaders out there, but you would probably agree, as I and Bill have come to know, the older you get, the harder it is to kind of rewire, to recreate habits.
It does.
So build margin. If you don't plan for it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and the question is, are you living to work? Are you working to live, right? So I work so I can do other things. I can live my life. I have my family. I have my wife, my kids.
Absolutely.
In growing family, my daughter's in a significant relationship that's most likely going to lead to marriage. And, grandkids, I want to make sure I have time for them. So I am living to add value to my organization, to bring, feel like I'm contributing and that I'm adding value to the bottom line of my workplace.
So you're working so you can live.
But my priority is those relationships, right? And just a well-balanced schedule leads to a well-balanced leader. So whatever that is, that's going to be different, slightly different for
Yeah.
everybody, given personality and makeups and where
Definitely.
you're
Yeah, I had a boss who
culture and
used to.
raised. Yeah.
I had a boss that used to say, "You do what you have to do, so you can do what you want to do." You know, and I kind of laughed at that, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
You know, some days you got to get up. Hey, I need to get this done. I need to work, and I understand that, but I also need to unplug. Right? I also need those times to do it. And so sometimes you're like, hey, you got to build up your career. You got to move forward. You got to get to a certain point. We understand that, but there comes a point in time where you got to understand. You got to rest. You got to unplug.
Yeah. There's times you have to buckle down and get this done.
Right.
Right. But then, yeah, absolutely. We absolutely need rest just as much as we need to buckle down and get things done.
Yeah. So that's the whole idea of building margin. So you got unplugging, build margin, plan out your schedule a little bit. The third thing we wanted to throw in here was prioritize relationships. You've heard us talk about time and time again. This is the value added podcast. What are we adding value? It's not a what, it's a who we're adding it to. Yeah. And so prioritize relationships. And, who are the most important relationships in your life? Mine is, for me, I can answer that straight up, is my wife and my children. Every other relationship is secondary. I've got, obviously, for me, I'm a man of faith. So I would say God, right? My wife and my family. And everything else is secondary. And I have to check myself every once in a while and go and ask, hey, is this true of me? As your husband, do you feel like I prioritize you more than any other relationship? As your dad, do I prioritize you? And that's going to be super, super important. It's hard. I think we've mentioned this before, but it's really hard to be a good leader outside the home when you're not a good leader in the home. That's just extra baggage you're bringing. But so, who are the most important relationships in your life?
Yeah, and again, legacy, I think, comes down to relationships, not necessarily goals. There are names out there of business leaders who made great accomplishments, but I look at the family, and
it's true.
In the shambles of the family as a result. I just read a biography of an actor who got a job on a TV show and lost his marriage because of how dedicated he was. And right or wrong, and you're not saying there's more things to contribute to that, but I think the priority is: are we working to live, or we live to work? It's about relationships. Even leadership is about relationships. Mm-hmm. Relationships is the number one vehicle through which we influence others.
Which we serve others.
Yeah, how we serve others. So they are very important. So in and outside of work.
And there's this thought too. If the axiom that you've heard us use before, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If that's true, then should not relationships be prioritized?
Yeah.
That's kind of the mantra here at the Value Added Podcast. But again, unplug, build margin, prioritize relationships. People don't know how much you care, how much you know until they know how much you care. If that's true, relationships matter. They should be prioritized.
And maybe you're someone out there going, yeah, that's nice, Bill and Jared, but the bottom line is the bottom line. We need to have a profitable company. And it's not always about relationships. It's about doing what we need to do to get the business successful, whatever that is for your organization. But I would circle back to that by saying the number one reason people leave and quit jobs is because of someone they're working with or working for, not because of the work they're doing. So yes, the bottom line is important. That's why a corporation, a company exists, to be profitable, right? To provide a service or products to people as a result. But I would say just a pinch above that is who you're doing it with. Right, and those relationships within that organization as you do the work.
I would throw this in there too. Nobody's gonna sit, or not that I've heard of. Nobody sits on their rocking chair, close to death, and regrets not having worked more.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we'll pause there for a second. And we're gonna get there, but it just keeps coming to my mind. And so. But let's give you a Maxwell quote because we love Maxwell so much here at the Value Added Podcast.
Yeah,
and then we're going to give you some things he's got.
We were doing some research on this topic, and we came across a blog from Maxwell on his organization. We'll include the link in the show notes to give full credit. But he's, number one, he says it allows you time to recover, rest. Your body needs time. If you've ever been to a gym and you've worked out, you're stiff and sore, and your body needs that time to recover. When you work out, you break down your muscles and you actually tear the muscles, and they heal, and they need time to heal for them to get bigger and stronger. And that's exactly how it works, giving that time and opportunity to recover and get stronger as a result of rest. Go figure. Rest helps you, is part of the equation of getting stronger. So very true with our leadership muscles as well.
I love that phrase, how he calls it leadership muscle.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. If you think of leadership as a muscle, it's got to work hard, but it's got to rest well.
Very much. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Number two, it allows you time to reflect. In bottom line here, he points out that looking back helps us gain clarity to look ahead. And if we don't have that time and that opportunity to sift through the events, the accomplishments, the failures, the learns, the wins, the relationships, how we're doing, where we need to go, what do we need to start, what do we need to stop, what do we need to continue, right? Just having that time to process that information. I don't know about you. Well, let me put it to you this way. Before my current employer, I had a job where it was an 1.5-hour commute, one way back and forth to work, and then a 10-minute walk from the parking lot into my desk. And I think some of the best ideas I came up with for that work
or in the car.
was in the car, just driving in silence.
For reals.
Because my mind had that time to settle and finish processing. And not all people work that way, and that's fine. But for me, and maybe some of you out there, you need that time of just,
don't be on work calls in your car.
Yeah.
Just use that time to reflect.
Go for a walk out in nature, and just breathe. And that just removes stress and then brings clarity to the good, healthy thoughts we need to have.
And that's it. I mean, in this too, his second point here allows you time to reflect is it's neat because you're answering it in a way that you're still working as a leader. So you're not completely unplugged, but you're also able to, do that whole, like he's talking about, since leaders separate themselves, he says, from the pack by seeing more and before others do, it's a smart idea to set aside time to reflect because looking back helps us gain clarity for looking ahead. And I love that because, again, we're talking about resting, and resting doesn't always have to be a complete unplugging, even though that's really important. Right. It can be, hey, I need to just go take that walk at lunchtime or go, have that coffee with that certain person because they're going to help me to just take a deep breath, slow down during my day, and reflect on what's actually going on. Yeah. And that can be a very personal, intimate thing with just you unplugging completely, or that can be, Maxwell's point can be great for your leadership role. So even rest is needed in your leadership role. Yeah.
Yeah, the removal of responsibility for a duration of time.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And
the third one's what?
Gives you time to rekindle, and specifically rekindle your passion. And this comes, he says it's from his CEO. Mark Cole is the CEO of Maxwell's companies. And I say companies more than one.
That's plural, yeah.
Yeah, plural. And Mark teaches this as a cycle. It's a time for rekindling passion for what you do.
Yeah.
Resting allows you to rediscover enthusiasm and energy and purpose that you have for the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
So, and I'll quote it here. It says, "If recovery is for the body, and reflection is for the mind, then rekindling is for the heart." Ooh. A leader needs all three to be effective. Thank you, John Maxwell and Mark Cole.
Yeah, there's some great content in these 3 points they have.
Very much. And again, I'll add the link to the description of our episode when I post it.
We kind of paraphrased a lot of what they're saying in there, but definitely if you get a chance, click the link, read it. Maxwell and Mark.
Yeah, Cole. And they're not paying us to say this or promote them in any way. This is...
they can if they'd like. That's okay.
We're just admirers of their skill as leaders. So.
But think about this. If recovery is for the body, right? Again, this is Mark and Maxwell. If recovery is for the body, reflection is for the mind, then rekindling is for the heart. The leader needs all three to be effective.
Yeah. It's like three-legged stool, you know?
Yeah, it really
if
is.
your three-legged stool is missing a
Body,
leg,
mind, and heart.
you're going to fall. Yeah.
So, and here's the disclosure. We don't want to just be like, hey, we know there's a few good things you can do and reasons why you should unplug or reasons why you should rest, and there's different application here.
And it's easier to say than do.
It's easier to say than do. Big disclosure there too. But one of the disclosures we wanted to make is that we understand that this could look different from person to person, right? Because we're working with people, different personalities. I mean, think about, Bill, comment on the introvert versus extrovert.
Yeah, don't play the comparison game.
You took entire 2 weeks and unplugged completely, and I only...
Yeah, exactly. How my wife unplugs and rests is different than how I plug and unrest.
Yeah.
And so same for peers at work. What they do on their restful, what rejuvenates them, so to speak, is totally different. And it's different for extrovert and introverts, and there's some big personalities out there that are actually introverts.
Yeah, there are.
And there are
really
some, smaller, quieter people out there who are actually extroverts.
Yeah.
And it comes down to not how big of, or forgive the word smaller, personality. In small, I mean just in...
Not as boisterous or outgoing.
Not in value.
Right.
It comes down to how your fuel cells are recharged.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right? Extroverts are refueled by being around people.
Yeah.
Right. And having that interaction and being part of the center of attention and what introverts, they're wired differently. I'm a proud card carrying member of Introverts Are Us myself. I need quiet time to process the thoughts, the emotions, and just get my headspace into the right area. Yeah. To debrief from the day or from a tough meeting or a long week. And social interactions is what actually really drains,
Yeah.
So when I do public speaking, and both Jared and I have done public speaking.
Still do.
When I'm done, my first thing is to come home and probably get a nap in if it's in the in the morning or early afternoon, or go to bed if it's in the evening, just to because I'm exhausted, So
it's funny. My spouse, she's a hiker. She loves to hike, and that's her way of like unplugging, I guess. And I'm like, and she does love the beach too. But I'm like, just send me to a tropical beach and leave me there, and that's where I get the best rest I've ever had. It's just I get up every morning, I grab my coffee, I don't even check my phone. I just go down to the beach and I just sit there and I just sit there. And it's just amazing not having to worry about anything or anyone. But her, she'd rather be out in nature and hear the birds singing, and I mean, she does enjoy her beach week every year. But for me, love it. And then for me too, I just love those days where there's nothing on the schedule. They're few and far between. Yes. But there's a couple of weekends ago, I think it was, we just found that we had like an entire day. Actually, no, it was 3/4 of the day where there was nothing, and we did nothing. We had some house projects, and we were like, you know what? Today's a nothing day. And we just kind of dubbed it a nothing day, and it felt good.
Yeah, there's times it's really nice just to sit outside on the porch and
do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the question to ask you then, for you to consider, is what makes you feel refreshed?
And if you say rock climbing, you can just chime out now.
Yeah, sign off now. No, just kidding. And it's be slightly different.
A lot of people go for a run to unplug and feel
absolutely.
rested. I got a buddy who he doesn't miss his runs because that's just how he unplugs.
Yeah. What makes you feel refreshed, and do you make time for it? Mm-hmm. I mean, I actually, put it on your calendar. If you have an electronic work calendar like I do, all my meetings are on this calendar. Everything I have to do is on this calendar.
Put your rest periods on there.
I put, if I know I have this heavy, intense meeting here, I'll put a debrief segment after it just for me to sit, be quiet, and process everything that went on in that meeting. Mm-hmm. And I'll take notes as the thoughts come to me, but there's no other agenda. There's just unplug and sift, filter, just relax and let my brain process. So what makes you feel refreshed and are you scheduling time for it? Right?
And I would add to this. Let me just throw this in there. There's got to be kind of a synopsis, some common elements of rest. So like when you're doing this building margin, you're throwing things in your calendar or whatever. Think of it this way. Yeah. There's three of them. Is this a suspension of responsibilities? And that's what it is. I'm just going to suspend some responsibilities. Is this I'm taking this rest to rejuvenate some relationships?
Or be around
rejuvenating relationships. Right?
You, yeah.
Or is this, I guess that would be more appropriate for this setting. Am I going to be around, going back to the family where I just get rejuvenated, or out with some buddies, just get rejuvenated? Or is it time away completely? So you've got suspension of responsibilities, you've got, coming around some rejuvenation, and then you've got time away. And kind of pepper those into your calendar throughout the year. Yeah. You get your big times where, hey, I'm gone for this week, or I'm gone for these 2 weeks. I know for some of you, you're already scared that I'm saying weeks at a time. So if you got to start with 3 days, start with 3 days. Whatever you got to do to get this done, you need that rest. And then sometimes is the suspension of responsibilities. Hey, I'm going to take an extra half an hour on the end of this lunch break. By that I mean I'll be back in the office, but the admin's gonna take these calls or whatever that looks like, just to suspend a little longer to get that extra rest.
And one of my greatest headaches after vacation is the inbox, the dreaded pile up of the inbox when I'm back, right? And the longer my vacation,
the bigger your inbox,
the more of a potential avalanche I have to deal with when I come back, and that's my fear. But every time, not just on occasion, but every time when I come back from my vacation, I'm going through my inbox. I'm like, oh yeah, he handled that. She handled this. That's already been taken care of. And I just move through and realize, everything's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's okay.
Not every one of you is going to be in that. This could be a learning curve for you. It really could. Yeah. And you may have to figure out, I can't take those big chunks quite yet. I would still recommend to do it. But even if you say, I really just can't do that, start small and work your way there. And maybe it really is you need an extra set of hands on your team. Maybe it's you need to let some things go. You need to go back and watch our episode on delegation. Right? Whatever it means for you, it's your job to get the rest that you need, not anybody else's.
I canceled this meeting. I delegated this task. I asked this person to be responsible for this. Before going on vacation, just to make sure that avalanche when I come back.
So suspension of responsibilities, rejuvenation, and time away. Now, Bill's going to give you, and we'll kind of close out this episode with this too.
We want to change your perspective.
We want to change your perspective. Yeah. And so let me go back and recap for a second. What we did, just for you, we asked this overarching question, right? Does rest, affect our ability to have an impact? Absolutely it does. And it affects it for the better when we do it right. So how do we do it? Well, we unplug, we build margin, we prioritize the right relationships. That's all areas of rest. And then we talked about Maxwell, and again, we'll drop a link in here for some of the reasons why rest is such an important investment for leaders. He says, is it allows you time to recover, it allows you time to reflect, it allows you time to rekindle. So good. By John Maxwell. And then we looked at, this is going to look different from person to person, from situation to situation. You've got introverts versus extroverts. You've got, what makes you as an individual feel refreshed. For some, it's go hike a mountain. For others, it's go sit on a beach. You've got common elements of rest. You talk about building margin and peppering these things into your calendar. Is this a suspension of my responsibilities? Is it rejuvenation? Is it time away? Is it all three? That would be even better. Yeah. So now we're going to go into, Bill's going to give us the top 5 regrets of dying by Bonnie Ware.
Yeah, Bonnie Ware wrote a book back in 2012, and literally the book is called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Let me read through these top 5 regrets. These are people on their deathbed looking back with the greatest regrets in their life. Now, listen for how many are related to the work, their job, and listen for how many are based around relationships. Number 1, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier.
As those are sinking in, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. This is
Only one is about work, and it was about not having worked so hard,
right.
right? Is hard work valuable? Yes. Is it important to put in hard work? Absolutely. There are seasons of my career where it's been 60, 70 hours a week for a time. But that's not a way of life. That was for a season, right? Man, just to think of someone on their deathbed going, what's the one thing I could go back and change? What would that be?
Yeah.
And one of them, number 2 of the list, is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I think work is important. I'll go back to what I said. The bottom line of your company is valuable. It's important. It's why you have a job. That's why that job provides for you, your family, your friends, and your hobbies.
Yeah.
But it is the relationships, that really, really matter. The legacy you leave behind will be more about how people felt about you than what you actually accomplished in your life.
Yeah, I think I've reached a point in my life, and take this with a grain of salt. Not everybody can say this, but I've reached a point in my life where you could offer me millions of dollars a year based on a 60 to 70 hour work week, and I would tell you absolutely not. I've just reached a part in my life where that doesn't even appeal to me. I get to coach my daughter's softball team. I get to go on lunchtime walks with my wife because we both work from home. I get to see my family, my extended family, weekly if I'd like to. I get to do this podcast with Bill. And I know not everybody is in that place in their career where they can, their hours are fluctuating and they can control their own schedule. So there's a lot that I would have to flesh out to show you why, but it's pretty simple for me. I prioritize my wife and my children, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I just wouldn't. You could offer me millions of dollars a year and I would not entertain the thought.
Also, again, there are those of us out there that are wired to be active, to be goal setters, to be accomplishers, to be these A-type personalities, right? Yeah. And they're valuable. They're the ones that kick the rest of us in the seats of our pants to get things done.
Yeah, we depend on them.
So I don't want to underplay or admonish you if you're an A-type personality to minimize what you want to do and accomplish and the goals you have for your life, your organization, or your business. Yeah. But I would challenge your value of it being the most important thing. If you think of accomplishments, there's the new Franklin show about Benjamin Franklin on Apple TV and all that he accomplished in bringing the French in for the Revolutionary War. There are people, CEOs that have, the typical Steve Jobs and Apple and all he accomplished in launching that business. Accomplishments are important. We have vaccines and we have penicillin and we have a lot of, the internet, and we were able to bring the technology that came about as a result of accomplishments. Those are important, and I don't mean to undermine those in any way. I do mean to say that a little bit more important than those are the relationships around us.
So true. I mean, I just spent, I think I might have mentioned this in the last podcast maybe, but I just went out and surprised a friend. So another buddy of mine went out and got in a plane and went and saw one of our other buddies from high school years, and didn't tell him we were coming. It was his birthday. Totally surprised him. And so he wasn't able to obviously unplug completely. And we knew that going into it. So we got to kind of shadow him. He does have a flexible work schedule. So we were able to kind of, see what he does on the daily, as well as just, we did not expect him to not umpire his kid's game or coach or whatever. So we get to be a part of that. And the three of us just, went out to breakfast and we were just sitting there just talking about life, and, our minds and hearts kind of went around the idea of, this is what it's all about. Even when, you're able to just pop in and you're able, so I watched my buddy be able to unplug without losing momentum with his career, with his, responsibilities. So it's possible. And, you know, he's the type you just spoke of, you know, I got to get this done. We got to move but, you know, we've all come a long way. So it takes practice. It takes, it takes intentionality to really think through. I don't want to be one of these people on my deathbed, you know, man, I wish I hadn't worked so hard or whatnot. So even if you are that type of person who, you know, we depend on you, you know, to get things done. We understand that 110%.
Very much.
We've got people depending on us. So we do have to work and to work hard, but resting is important.
Very much so. We have deadlines, we have objectives, we have a new building program for our church, we have projects at work, we have all sorts of things to accomplish. But I want to make sure that the people I'm doing those things with know that I care about them and they're valuable to me.
Absolutely.
So, and then having said that, knowing that there's times that I need to disconnect, recharge, so I can serve them better.
So we're going to give you some application.
Yep.
Here it is.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. It will be for some of you.
It will, yeah.
Start practicing rest.
Yeah.
That's it. Just start. Could be small, could be big. It could be taking the RV and getting out of Dodge for a month. It could be, I need to take the rest of the afternoon, block off my schedule, go lay in a hammock with a good book. Whatever it looks like for you, start practicing rest.
Put in a good day of work, week, month, season, and then absolutely rest and enjoy it.
Thanks for joining us today on the Value Added Podcast. As always, if you have questions, comments, we'd love to connect with you if we can. So
yeah, if we've added value to you in any way over this episode or previous or upcoming ones, please leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. You can email us at influence@thevalueaddedpodcast.com.
Like, share, and subscribe, and all those crazy things you always hear from podcasters.
So we'd like to engage with you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.